Welcome everyone to our show and tell show. Can you believe it? This is episode number 16.
16.
This is amazing. So we're glad that you decided to join in. Either you're watching live or perhaps you're watching the recording. Ironically, Andy and
Ironically,
I are recording this for you because of our travel schedules.
yep.
We're going to be I don't even know where we're going to be. So we thought it would be best if we recorded this and allowed you to be able to watch it during the regularly scheduled time. So just keep that in mind. If you have questions, feel free to drop them into the question box. We just won't be answering those live on the show. We'll get back to you.
That's right.
That's going to be all right. But again, thanks for joining us, and we're so thankful that you have chosen to do that. You know me as Rick Newberry, and my company is Enrollment Catalyst. And obviously, I work with schools to help them with their enrollment and marketing processes and strategies. And so my travel schedule has been pretty exhausting lately, working with schools. In fact, Andy, I just visited a school in Rhode Island, and this
Ooh,
was the 46th state that I've actually worked with schools. So I only
6.
really
That's
need to
impressive.
go to four more states. And so I made my wife, not made her, but I asked her to guess the other day which were the states. Do you have a guess?
Oh, let's
That I
see.
haven't worked with a school. One
I know
guess.
I know a lot that you have been to.
Yeah.
How about North Dakota?
North Dakota is one. Yes, I've not been to
That you
North
have not been
Dakota.
to
I have not been to, haven't worked with a school. So if you're watching the show
from
and
North
tell show
Dakota.
and you're in
Yes.
North Dakota, let me know. I'll be glad to come your way. Also,
Yeah.
Maine and Idaho and Mississippi. Those are the four states that I've
Ooh,
not yet worked with a school. So
okay.
hopefully you're listening and you'll knock on my door, find me online, and I can work with you at some point through a number of my different programs. So, Andy, what about you? Tell us a little bit about tassel marketing.
Thanks, Rick. Well, folks, good to be with you again. I'm Andy Lynch, President and CEO of Tassel. We help schools in a variety of ways. The primary ways you see on screen here, online marketing, those digital strategies to help you connect with prospective right fit families. We do a lot of branding work for schools. That can be everything from developing a brand standards guide to a minor refresh, all the way to changing the name of a school, which we did several times over the last several months. We do a lot of website development. Messaging by age and stage is a signature solution for us, and then developing the right fit family rubric. What's your framework for evaluating family fit and predicting their likelihood to succeed in your model and in your culture? We love doing professional development stuff. It's why we do the Enrollment Marketing Geeks. And if you've benefited from this, we would love to see you in person. We've got two opportunities coming up this summer. Rick, tell us what's on deck for this summer for the Geeks on the Road series.
Yeah, we're going all the way out to California. We'll be at Linfield Christian in Temecula, which is really halfway between the LA area and San Diego. Be a great place to be able to plan a few day vacation. The same with Chicago, where Timothy Christian is located. They're in a suburb in Elmhurst. Another great opportunity to be able to take part in some professional development as well as maybe plan a vacation with your family or just some time away. So we have a great time, don't we, Andy, at Geeks on the Road? And you can see the
Oh,
fun that we have. It's engaging. We do hands-on activities and workshop focus. Great time to be able to network with your peers,
yeah.
and of course, learn from the geeks, right?
Yeah, then the first one, you might be wondering what's the difference between these two? Should I come to one, to the other, or both? On July 17, Rick and I will be going through the 5 phases of the family journey and talking about differentiated strategies for each of those 5 phases. It gives you a broad overview of what's possible as a family moves from the recruitment process all the way through retention. How do you turn them into advocates that start the journey all over for people within their network? That's a great one. Followed by the next week, we're going to do a deep dive into the admissions process. So the admissions playbook workshop, where we go deep into that sales function of your school. It's not just for folks in admissions. We have head of schools, heads of school come, of course, marketing and missions team, advancement team members, even some division leads have joined us at these things, and they've come from all over the place. And we would love to see you in person. There's a QR code. Don't miss the early nerd special. $345 for the first team member, $295 for additional team members. We want to make this affordable so whole teams can come. And there's a price increase on May 16, so take advantage of that early nerd special. Well, thanks for joining us again for the Show and Tell show. This is the show that answers a question that Rick and I get often. What are other schools doing? So Show and Tell show is the show that showcases schools doing something worth showing off, or things that we've seen at schools that we would love to share with you all. So Rick, of course, we're always interested in what schools are doing, the ones we've been to, the ones we've not. So if you're doing something that you think would be a great fit for the Show and Tell show, you can email us at webinars@tasselmarketing.com. We'd love to hear from you about what you'd like to show off. So, Rick, on the subject of Show and Tell, I know Show and Tell was one of my favorite parts of elementary school. Did you bring any Show and Tell today?
I actually did. I always am prepared for something to show off. And I fly, it feels like almost every week somewhere. And my airline of choice is Southwest Airlines. And I just happen to keep their snack. They go all out here in this very small bag of Maui Monk. And so, it's a nice upgrade from the pretzels that they used to provide. And just a nice little perk. I make sure that I bring my own snacks when I'm flying, but it's a great airline, gives me a lot of points. My wife gets to fly free with me wherever I go, so there's some benefits. What about you, Andy?
So my Show and Tell is a little different. When my wife and kids were pulling out on the way to school this morning, she called and said, "There's a turkey in our driveway." And so this guy was out there strutting around, and he was just magnificent. I got to get pretty close to him and take a few pictures and videos. So I am sharing with you a little bit of the scenes of nature from my front yard this morning. If you've watched Show and Tell shows, been around the geeks for any period of time, we know we love some dad jokes, the good ones and the bad ones. So Rick, get us started here with a dad joke.
So my girlfriend in high school broke up with me because she found out I had 9 toes. She told me she was lactose intolerant.
Ooh, sorry to hear that. Let's get on with our topic for the day. The top 10 always on strategies for marketing and emissions. Rick, what's the focus today?
Yeah, as we were thinking about what we wanted to highlight during the show and tell show, what kept coming up was just the topic that there are some strategies for marketing and admissions that you always need to have turned on. That's the light switch going up. So, regardless of what season you're in or what's happening within your school environment, these are 10 core strategies that you always need to be focusing in on. And in essence, this is kind of a taste of some of the topics that we discuss at our Geeks on the Road workshop. So this is just giving you a little bitty taste. It's kind of like this bite-sized snack here, and we're getting a perspective as to some of the bigger picture items that we talk about and discuss at our workshop in the
Yeah.
summer. So Andy, talk us through the first one on the
Yep.
meeting cadence.
Yeah. A lot of these things we're going to bring up are concepts that once you set them in motion, you maintain them. It's a decide once strategy, and I think that's certainly true of meeting cadence. And we start with this one in our top 10 because so many of the other things require just ongoing communication, either just monitor to optimize, even to set in motion. And we found regardless of how big the team is or how small the team is, a lot of teams just struggle with a consistent meeting cadence. So here's an example of different meeting cadences that you might commit to. The annual strategic planning meeting. Once a year, you want that far enough advanced to where the decisions that you make can impact your budget planning, your fiscal year budget planning. And this should be a full day. So you set your long-term targets. You're going to look back over the last year, look ahead to the coming year, and define those priorities, those areas where you want to make progress. Well, if you set that annual plan, you're going to need some sort of cadence for following up on that to see how you're actually progressing through that plan, what changes you need to make. So that could be either quarterly or triannual. That's a half day. Evaluate progress toward priorities, evaluate effectiveness over the last period. The monthly reviews can be 90 minutes where you're taking a look at specific numbers and you're making adjustments. We also like to do core value callouts where you're saying, my peers, where have my peers lived out our core values as a school in extraordinary ways over the last month? Those weekly check-ins can be 45 to 60 minutes, general updates, project status, discuss issues and opportunities, just good hygiene to make sure you're not losing sight of things that you should be working on and removing roadblocks. And I'm also an advocate for the daily stand-up. And as the name implies, Rick, you're standing, I'm standing. This helps keep the meeting short if you're standing up, and it's just a quick check-in, clarifying conversations, identify, remove roadblocks, and just keep short accounts with each other. If you're interested in what these agendas could look like specifically for that weekly meeting, you can hit this QR code. Here's a proposed meeting framework that you can take and make it your own. So encourage you to check that out. It's one of the always on strategies that Rick and I believe that every team should commit to. Dial in your
You
meeting
know,
cadence and commit to it.
yeah, Andy, one thing that surprises me about that list that you provided, as I work with lots of schools, is that often what's missed is that weekly meeting. You need that regular focus, talking with your teammates and with the head of school about what's going on in your admissions and marketing effort. Because that's going to drive decisions.
That's
You're going
right.
to look at results, you're going to adjust strategies, and that's so important.
So good. All
Let's
right.
move on to number two.
Number two.
Yeah, and this one, we're going to take a look at enrollment data in your dashboard report. And so, in a way, this one is a fundamental, always on strategy as well. And I find so many schools miss out on this opportunity where the data isn't being collected on the front end, for example, in admissions. And so, you need to take that opportunity to be able to capture the data. Obviously, if it's coming in on a form, you're going to do that, but on the phone calls that are received or the personal email exchanges, you need to make sure that you're capturing that inquiry data, because that's going to help drive the conversations that you're going to have and follow up. And ideally, you want to use a database to be able to manage all this for you. I've run into some schools lately that are just piecing things together through spreadsheets. And while that can work, it's just not the most effective tool, because if you want to go in and send a mass email to a certain segment of your population, it's hard to do that from a spreadsheet. So a database can work on your behalf. And so you might use Fax or Veracross, Blackbaud, Inquiry Tracker as a standalone admissions database. So if you don't have one, I'd recommend that you go there and you take a look at Inquiry Tracker. It's an Australian-based company, but you need to track your data, so that you can understand what's happening. It'll show the results, but it also gives you a means and methods for you to be able to follow up effectively. And then you need to see it within your enrollment dashboard report. This is often where schools miss out on capturing the data. Can you advance to the next slide, Andy? And let's look at this spreadsheet here. This is just a simple spreadsheet, although it looks pretty complex, that I designed years ago in an Excel file. If you use Fax, it's actually built into your system. So what it's going to show you is exactly by grade level what's happening with re-enrollment, and then all the different categories, levels of the new student funnel, and then the total numbers for re-enrollment and also new students, how you're doing in light of your goals, and then how many more students you need. So in this one spreadsheet, if you're keeping track of all these data points, it's going to show you exactly the results that you have in place. You can know where you're falling short, where you're moving ahead, any adjustments in your strategies that you need to make. So you need to be looking at your numbers all the time, at least weekly, if not daily, to try to understand what's happening in your admissions and marketing effort. So, any
And
thoughts on that one, Andy?
yeah, it connects back to our first strategy, and that's why we lead with meeting cadence. And one of the aspects of that agenda, one of the components of that agenda is let's look at our reports, let's look at our numbers, which implies that you have a standardized framework for tracking and displaying them. Because what you don't want to happen is, there's all of a sudden this emergency saying a meeting saying, hey, we're way behind, and team members thought that we were just sort of, we thought we were in a good place. What do you mean? Well, if you're not tracking those numbers consistently and reviewing them on a regular basis, you might find some unpleasant surprises.
That's so right. So let's take a look at number three, content development. This is another key area. It's just foundational. It's really a 24/7, every day of the year activity that you should be involved in is developing your content. Because prospective parents are potentially going to envision themselves in the stories that you tell about your school. So that's why you need to be focused in on storytelling and to do that online. Ideally, you want to have a main menu on your website that highlights the stories that you're telling of your people and your programs. And you could certainly categorize those stories by your different groups: parents, faculty, staff, students, alumni. You can even ask individuals or families within your school community to share those family pictures with you so you could use it as part of your storytelling focus. So you have a tremendous opportunity to tell the story of your school, just like Pacifica Christian has done out in Santa Monica. They have a story section on their website. And so you see all the newer stories showing up there in the middle, and then the categories are on the right. So this becomes the basis for everything that they're doing in their content development, because now they can spread this out and share it out. Social media, email newsletters, lead nurturing follow-up sequences as they're working with prospective parents. Same with Westminster Catawba Christian School in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Uh, when I was walking them through the process of implementing this strategy, they got it right away, and they built it within their website. The story section, you can see the different categories, and they just continue to add to the story library, and it becomes really foundational for them in their content development and their storytelling. So when you think about social media, that is an opportunity to showcase life at your school. I see so many swings and misses here. We're in baseball season, and you see batters striking out, and I see schools striking out too because they're failing to tell the story of their school 24/7. So you need to look at social media as an opportunity to be able to do that. In fact, when I'm sitting in focus group meetings with brand new parents who've just chosen the school, they'll tell me that after I started, looking at the school, I decided to peer into their social media channels and see what life is like. And so it's a great area on Facebook, Instagram, and also YouTube where you can highlight your stories, and you can do that in an intentional way. Three different ways that I encourage schools to consider their posting strategy. Most schools are at the bottom level. Number one, capture moments of school life. They're capturing what's happening. They're posting that online. Weekly campaigns is an opportunity to be able to have a framework to what you're doing on a weekly basis. So you might have a Throwback Thursday post, or maybe it's a Family Friday story, or a Teacher Feature Tuesday post. Lots of ideas. Monthly campaigns is also another great framework. In fact, right now, as we are in April and May, we're approaching the end of the school year. It's a great time to feature your graduates. So this would be an example of a monthly campaign. You see an example of Christian Academy of Knoxville and their Well Done Warrior campaign. They have well over 100 graduates, and they take the time to post an individual post about each one of their seniors. And so I love the tie-in to the earlier picture, or it could be a campaign. I love this approach at Pacifica Christian where the seniors are wearing their college or university sweatshirt of choice. So obviously we could talk much more about this, but I just want to reemphasize that this is foundational. Content is king, and you should always be focusing in on this.
Yeah, and that's also important just for search engine optimization. The more rich your site is with relevant content, the more valuable Google will perceive it to be for prospective searchers, which leads to number four, always on strategy. which is online marketing. And this is a massive topic, but what I want you to hear is there are a handful of things that you should have always on. So when we think about online marketing and advertising, first, just running brand-centric promotional campaigns on paid search and paid social. So the paid search, the paid social assures that you have a level of visibility. You're not completely dependent on organic search engine optimization to get your school the brand visibility that it needs. With paid search and paid social, it's essentially coin operated. So when you pay, you're going to move to the top of the list or the head of the class there. A bit of an oversimplification, but it guarantees you a measure of visibility that if you're not doing that strategy, you would not get. So just bear in mind when we say always on, it's just that. There might be certain seasons where you increase your spend, but it is always a good time to assure that you have brand visibility, because you can't dictate when families are going to have experiences that cause them to go shopping for a different school context. Provide an overview of the whole school experience. It's a core consideration strategy that could be through ebooks, that could be through content assets, downloadable content assets. And we're big advocates of dialing in those ad campaigns by specific ages and stages. So if I have a kindergartner, show me ads that are relevant to that decision in kindergarten. Or I've got a child approaching middle school, market your middle school. So it's not just generic and high level, but it's dialed into specific ages and stages. So when I say paid search, what is that and how does it work? Just a quick flyover here. If you need to drive interest quickly from families who are serious shoppers, paid search, particularly Google Ads, would be one lever that you could pull. And that's significant in that people are going to that search engine looking for answers. Whereas in social feeds, that's not necessarily their intent, is to go shopping. We'll touch on that more in a moment. But paid search, where someone is typing into a search engine, private elementary school or private Christian school near me, independent schools near me, it shows intent that they plan to make a decision around that sometime in the near future. Of course, it can span every age and stage, or you can dial into a specific audience. We get the question a lot for schools that are just dipping a toe in the water or curious about what other schools are spending. Be prepared to spend anywhere between $750 to $2,000 per month based on the market, not including management fees. So it gives you some sense of how to think about that always on budget for paid search. Google is the primary channel, and you're not going to maintain that visibility if you stop paying. It isn't always on strategy, so it should be part of your budget year round. We want to be careful here to advise not just to point traffic to the homepage of your site, but you want to drive them to a landing page that encourages them to take a very specific action, and in which you give them something in return. We'll talk about those content assets here in a little bit, those downloadable content assets. You should be able to see a clear return on investment for this. If all you're doing is just saying, we got this many impressions, that's not taking it far enough. You should be able to connect activity through that reporting process and say, we spent this much, we got this many inquiries, this many enrollments. Just to be clear, when we talk about lead generation, where does that paid search piece, typically you'll see the ad, that little indicator ad that shows you this is paid content. I mentioned landing pages, and Rick, landing pages are a huge part of this strategy. There's a lot of content or a lot of a lot of ads that just sort of dump families on random parts of the website or perhaps the homepage, and there's not really a specific action that we're taking of them. With the landing page strategy, we're only asking for just a few pieces of data here. We're not asking them to fill out a 17 or 21 field application to raise a hand. You can see on this landing page from Bradford Christian Academy, we're just asking for just a few pieces of data, and then we're going to give them something in return. This is a content offer, an ebook or a responsive content asset, and that sets them up to have a campus visit opportunity. So the call to action graphic is really important too. We want to see this on the homepage of your website to give people a very clear on-ramp for their interests. This is another example from the First Academy, different form of landing page, but still with that downloadable packet, that content offer where they can get a consolidated overview of your school. The lead nurturing sequence, Rick, you're a big advocate of lead nurturing sequences. What is that, and why is that so important?
Yeah, it's a way to keep in front of that prospective parent once they have engaged with you by completing the form. And so you do that through a series of pre-written, personalized emails that deliver content that's relevant to them, but also gives them call to actions to take the next step. So it's a way to keep your school in front of your leads so you can supplement that with your own personal contact. That's actually going to be one of our additional always on strategies that we'll talk about a few numbers from here, but very important. So let's move to number 5, which is word of mouth marketing. This is an area that I love. In fact, I wrote an ebook on this topic a few years ago. Actually need to update this, but still a great resource that you can download and you can access. I talked through 9 drivers of word of mouth, and I don't have time to go through all 9 this morning, this afternoon, whatever time it is. But you can go through this and you can look at all those 9 drivers, but the most important one is actually number 9. And those are your people who become your fans. Your fans are going to be a core group that can help drive more word of mouth to your community. Your job is to inspire it. Think about being a fan of your favorite team. You know, a fan, what do? They cheer on their team, they brag about their team. It's the power of that word of mouth. So the idea behind a fan program, which I often discuss with schools, is that you want to identify and attract and ask these fans within your school community to be part of a program. So you invite them to come to an event where you're going to launch your fan program. And so you're talking through this agenda, the power of word of mouth. You're going to ask them to share their story in the room. You're going to emphasize how word of mouth is storytelling, and then you're going to ask your fans to do 3 things for you, who are primarily your parents. Keep it simple, keep it specific, keep it intentional. Don't overwhelm them with 27 possibilities. Give them 3 easy ways that they can get involved to help share word of mouth to the community. Nudge 2 or 3 friends, share their story with you so you can share it online. Back to that always on online storytelling strategy, and write a review. And so worked with many schools that have successfully launched their program, and you can get a feel from a couple of these slides just by the energy, the life in the room. You're not asking them to give a financial gift to the school. You're actually asking them to just help spread word of mouth, and you're directing them with some specifics as to what they can do along the way.
You're,
So
you're also
very,
not
very
asking
powerful.
them to. You're also not asking them to come to a bunch of meetings too, right? Right? Because
No, not at all.
that's
Yeah.
something they might be coming in thinking like, "Am I signing up to come to some sort of regular?" So we actually did a webinar on this, growing your parent ambassador program. You can go back and watch that recording by hitting that QR code. I love this as an always on strategy because once you set this in motion, it just really leverages the power of your network.
Yeah.
That was episode 11, by the way.
Mm.
The next, number 6, always on strategy, is your website. It's the tireless 24/7 sales agent for your school. It's a window into your culture. And it's really the landing place for a lot of family interests who are doing research. What do you say about yourselves? And, we've done multiple, at our Geeks on the Road events, multiple live website audits. And it's always so interesting, some of the things that we point out. It's like, do you realize that on your homepage, you don't even have the grades that you serve? Or your phone number is kind of hard to find. I was talking with a school yesterday that has a bright, shiny website. And I pointed out, you realize you don't have a search bar. So how does someone search your site? So this is just a quick and dirty checklist here. By no means exhaustive. We go deeper into website strategies or Geeks on the Road event. But this is a sampling of the Geeks checklist for assessing your school's website. So stories of success organized by perspective. That's one of our prior always on strategies. Super important for prospective families to understand that people have been successful coming through your school, and that's where the stories of success are organized. Age and stage segment on the homepage. leading to agent page, pillar pages, and content downloads. So when they hit your website, it's not enough to say that we're a pre-K to grade 12. I want to see a very clear progression. So pre-K, kindergarten, elementary, middle, and high school displayed in sequence, visually represented on the homepage of your website, because it gives families a place to go deeper into what will be relevant content for them, as opposed to high level sort of generic information. Those pillar pages, once they click through those graphics, those agent stage graphics, it doesn't just sell like this is the third grade experience, because we want them for more than just third grade. We want to sell the elementary experience. It's selling the dish, not the ingredients. We want to show them what's possible as they move through the developmental gears at your school. A process-oriented admission section. I think a couple show and tell shows ago, we did a full overview of admission sections of website. That was a great episode, and I think one that
Of
schools would
course, it
do.
was great, Andy. You and I were speaking.
It's particularly great because I did most of the talking, Rick. Just kidding.
Oh, nice.
But I love that one. We did some live reviews of admissions sections. And it's just so important to get that right. And clear and helpful tuition information. Rick, you wrote a post not long ago about the significance of posting your tuition and not hiding it.
Right.
Searchable staff directory. Current photography that supports the content the guest is viewing. So if they're in the elementary section of your website, you should have, wait for it, pictures of elementary kids. This is another one where some website tools just sort of automatically pull in an image by default. And I've been in kindergarten sections of the website where you see a graduate, or you see like, here's high school slice of life stuff, just a mismatch. Logical, helpful calls to action. So if I'm interested, how do I inquire? That should be easy to do. Blog is super important. I had a conversation yesterday with a school that had a blog, but it was kind of hard to find. The only way to get to it was a link in the footer, and they thought it was primarily for search engine optimization purposes. No, your blog should be a place that showcases your expertise and helps you develop authority and demonstrate you know what you're doing. I'm not going to go deep into this, but ADA compliance is certainly a factor. It's helpful, but it also keeps you out of potential legal trouble. Privacy and accessibility statements, and an easy-to-use, non-restrictive content management system. We're big fans of WordPress. WordPress is the #1 content management system on the planet, and it can be a wonderful tool for schools. And then some sort of analytics tracking. Google Analytics is a favorite for us to track trends, goals, etc. for website traffic. So we could go way deeper on website stuff, but it's an always-on strategy that you should be attentive to, which brings us to number 7. I know more and more people in our audience are familiar with HALDA, but Rick, give us a quick overview of what HALDA is and how schools can take advantage of that.
Yeah, think of it as an opportunity when a parent lands on your website to engage with the parent. It's in a pop-up box that you'll see in just a moment that gives the parent a series of questions. Each time a question is asked and the parent responds, that data point is recorded. And then what Haldo will do is it will generate AI content that's based upon how the parent responded. And it's also a lead generation tool because it will get to the point where the name and email address of the parent will be asked for so that you can effectively follow up with them. So it's just another way to engage with a prospective parent when they land on your website and generate a lead. And I know we've seen great success with a number of schools that have already signed on with Halda. They're seeing leads coming in. And I'm always finding schools that are wanting to know, how do we generate more leads? Well, this is an obvious answer to be able to implement this on your website. And you go through Tassel to do this because they're partnered with Halda. And so you would connect with Micah Fox and he can give you a demo overview. And, the cost is very affordable, I think, for any school, $500 a month.
Yeah, we have seen tremendous results with this. You think about it, you're already getting traffic to your website. You want to convert more of that traffic, and that's Halda uses AI to do that. We've been very impressed with the results. Lead nurturing. Rick, tug on this thread a bit more that we opened earlier. Lead nurturing, you gave us a quick overview of what that is, but I think this is such an important of the admissions process, the follow up plan. So just go a little deeper into this one if you would.
Yeah, when you get the lead, you've got to do something with that lead. So you want to engage in a relationship. It's a lot like dating. Remember back whenever you were in dating mode, or maybe that's your life right now. You're developing a relationship, and you have communication. You have events, things that you do together to see where the relationship will go. That's the same in admissions. You need to engage with your prospective parents. So you need to understand your process. I'm always surprised when I start working with a school. We don't have a follow up process. We don't know what happens when a family fills out a form on the website and what they will actually get. We've seen a lot of surprises. And I think it needs to be balanced with all different types of follow up. So as you're nurturing that lead, not only do you want an automated email flow of personalized messages that we talked about earlier, but you also want to engage with the prospective parent through phone, through personal email, and also text messages. Um, Recently, I've connected with a couple schools that I'm working with, and um, they don't do a lot of personal phone calls through their admissions effort. Now, part of it is too much demand on their time. They just have way too much to do and not enough staff. But we've got to find a way to be able to have that personal contact because you're developing a relationship. And as you have a conversation with a prospective parent, you're trying to move them to the next step, the next opportunity to maybe visit campus or to submit an application or to finish that process. And so you're nurturing that lead, all along the way. As we talked about earlier, use a database to be able to record and manage that information. There's lots of different approaches that you could take along those lines, but the most important thing is make sure you have a follow-up plan. You're using all different methods to be able to interact and engage with prospective parents. Um, if you're in admissions, you're in sales. And as part of that sales process is an opportunity to be able to communicate your school in a compelling way that's going to connect with that prospective parent, but also to move them or attempt to move them to the next step to hopefully see an enrollment come out of that.
That's where that first bullet point is so significant. Map and define your processes, because how do you optimize something that's not documented?
Right.
And that's where I see a lot of teams just have a lot of stuff between their ears, and assumptions can get you in trouble, especially if you have a new team member coming in or there's turnover in the office. So that always on strategy is so important. Have a process so you can do continuous improvement on it. Another important always on strategy, your annual survey, another area of expertise and focus for you, Rick. And you're an advocate for 5 annual surveys. Walk us through these.
Yeah, ideally, you want to have this plan in place where, as you start the new school year, you're conducting a new parent survey to evaluate the admissions process, the marketing effort, why they chose your school, a lot of important feedback for you. And then late fall, usually at the turn of the first quarter, to the second quarter, you would conduct a net promoter score survey, which is going to be just a real brief survey based upon the question on a scale from 0 to 10, with 10 being the highest. How likely are you to recommend the school to a friend in the community? Through that one question and there's a few other follow-up questions, I'll be able to really see the health of your school through that score and understand if there's any issues that are brewing at your school that you need to pay attention to. Then in the spring, it's important that you conduct comprehensive parent and employee satisfaction surveys. So I'm engaged with several schools right now on these surveys, and it's important to get that feedback toward the end of the school year, so that then that's going to help you move into the summer. You're going to have all this feedback that you can determine if there's anything you need to work on to improve the next school year. And then last but not least is an exit survey, typically end of the school year going into the summer, would be the time that you would want to survey your families who have decided not to return. It's important to understand their feedback and the reasons why they have decided not to continue at your school. So I've designed all these surveys and I offer this to schools through my School Survey Solutions program. And you can work with me and I'll conduct all five or just one or two. I've also done some alumni and student surveys, so there's variations beyond what you were seeing on the screen. But it gives you the feedback that you need because it's not enough to just issue surveys. You really have to work together as a team to really try to make your school better by taking the feedback you're receiving and having it affect your school in a positive way. So whether you're doing it on your own or you're hiring me or you're looking at other companies, the key is that you have a survey plan in place on an annual basis.
And you do something with what you learn.
That's right.
All of this, of course, should be part of an enrollment marketing plan. We believe
Mhm.
this is another important online marketing or just always on marketing and admissions strategy is having a plan. And this does not have to be 100 pages long. I mean, a plan is essentially this is what we're going to do and why. We go deeper into this in our Geeks on the Road events. This is a massive topic. But at a high level, what are you going to choose to focus on and articulating those in terms of enrollment goals and your seasonal priorities? Our enrollment goals, what are we aiming for in recruitment and retention? And how are we going to move the needle on those numbers? And then seasonal priorities. I don't necessarily mean winter, spring, summer, fall, but in this next season of opportunity, what are the handful of priorities? Not projects, but priorities where we want to focus because projects support priorities. We have to get on the same page in terms of what our priorities are, which informs our action plan. So for that priority, who owns it? Have we clearly defined it? What are the goals? How are we going to measure it? What's our timeline for getting it done? If we put budget to it. So you can see that enrollment marketing plan has just a handful of components. So what are your health enrollment model commitments? Again, enrollment goals, seasonal priorities. Sometimes it helps to do assessments. You can have
Mhm.
assessments done to understand where you should move the needle so you're not just going with your gut. And this can take a variety of formats from surveys to focus groups, looking at data. You want to be careful to define your enrollment goals, not in a way that's just sort of completely set by the CFO or the business office, but what is actually realistic for us to pursue. Those seasonal priorities, you're not going to be able to do everything at once. So what are you actively pursuing and what's in the backlog that you'll get to over time? And then all of that is put through the filters of reality, our timeline, what we can actually get done, the available funding, and I should also say your team's capacity.
Mm.
You may have deadlines and you may have funding, but if you don't have the expertise and the capacity to get things done, your plan will not go far. So, Rick, I know you do a lot with helping schools develop these plans through your Enrollment Catalyst program. Anything to add here as we wrap up our 10th Always On strategy?
This is important for every school to go through. So no matter if you're in a situation where you're maxed out with your enrollment, you have waiting pools, you still want to continue to maximize that. To obviously the school that's experiencing some challenges with maybe declining enrollment and then everything in between. So just like we go to a doctor for an annual physical and checkup, the same is true in our ongoing effort to assess what we're doing and to develop and implement a plan to keep us on track to help us move forward. So these are 10 always on strategies for admissions and marketing. And I think these are just so foundational to every school that's tuned in to the show and tell show that hopefully you have a takeaway here that you can evaluate where you're at and look at ways to be able to enhance what you're doing. Or maybe it's just reaffirmation that you're doing the right things and that these strategies are always on. Andy, take us to a dad joke.
Yeah, you talked about a high school relationship. It's painful, but in high school I broke up with my girlfriend Lorraine because I wanted to see another girl named Claire Lee. It was a tough breakup, Rick, but I kept telling myself, cheer up. You can see Claire Lee now. Lorraine has gone. It's so bad.
That is bad.
Oh, if, if
Where
you
do you
thought that
get
was
these?
if you thought that was bad, see how bad it can get in person.
That's right.
So don't miss out on the Early Nerd special. We'd love to see you out in Temecula, California for the Family Journey Workshop. We'd also love to see you the following week at Timothy Christian Schools in Elmhurst, Illinois for the Admissions Playbook Workshop. So by all means, join us. Come, bring your team, bring your head of school. We would love to see you there. So that brings us to the end of episode 16, the always on marketing and admission strategies. Rick, this has been fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And again, if we can help any of you, if you have any questions you want to follow up with us directly, feel free to do that. But so glad that you tuned in to this episode of the Show and Tell Show. And always good to see you, Andy.
You too, Rick. So long.